Welcome to Let's Be Well Together podcast. We're your wellness check-in team. Join us each week or when you can. We enjoy exploring wellness concepts and reminding you to make time for wellness.
This is episode 87.
We hope our territorial acknowledgement improves allyship with Indigenous people within a reconciliation process. We're on the Haldimand Tract, located on the traditional territories of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We acknowledge the presence and traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land.
It's another week at Let's Be Well Together. My name is Isabelle Sinclair, and I'm joined by John Webster. How are you today, John?
I'm really good. I've been getting some good workouts in this week.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear. Was there anything that you would like to discuss today?
I was really kind of interested and almost blown away when I heard you and Sierra talking about hustle culture. And so then I came across an article, and it's from the Queen's University Journal. It's written by Jasmine Hasmatali. It's dated January 20th, 2023. And it says, hustle culture leaves no room to celebrate the small wins. You're doing better than you think. And so that's why I sent that over to you. I just thought it was really neat to flow from your discussion.
That sounds great. Yeah, I can definitely relate to the whole hustle culture sentiment, especially as a university student. So I'm keen to know if you feel this in your workplace.
I think it's different. I think what this article is saying in part is, and it's a message I try and tell university students, you look at yourself and you're comparing yourself to a bunch of people who you see at the university or at other universities, and everyone's going crazy doing a million things, and you're comparing yourself and you're thinking to yourself, I'm not doing too well. And yet if you could step back, if you have to compare yourself at all, compare yourself to kind of the general population or where you thought you would be 10 years ago or something to that effect. And you're doing great, but you just can't see it. And I worry that hustle culture feeds that. So I guess my first question to you, Isabelle, is do you see the hustle culture around you? Do you see that kind of mindset?
For sure. I think it's really evident online as well among university students. I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in comparison, whether it's on different social media platforms or amongst your friends, your peers, especially as we're growing into young adults, navigating hardships, excitement, confusion, as young adults face. It's really easy to get wrapped into that. So I think it's important to realize that we're all growing together. Everyone is on their own journey. Yours might not be as quick as others, but you never know what other people are going through type of thing. For me personally, I could really feel this sentiment going through like the co-op journey. It's really easy to compare what placement you get in comparison to your friend. But if you really retrospectively, if you think down the line, comparing yourself will not get you any further. It just puts a halt to your development, I would say. It doesn't allow you to fully immerse yourself in the moment, and it really hinders your experience. That's what I could say, just because I know that every time I compare myself, I'm not able to just be in the moment, enjoy myself, enjoy how I'm developing. And I think it can really affect one's lifestyle as well, just by not being present in the moment.
That's the thing that I really take from it. It's focusing on something very narrow. And so one thing the article points out is it's a mindset that's really become normalized for students and young professionals, that we're expected to constantly push the limits to see how much we can handle. We always have to be doing something. And then, of course, we're looking around and seeing what other people are doing. But if you think about things from my perspective, so I talk a lot about 8 categories of wellness. And to me, education, especially when it comes to working towards a career, that's pretty focused on the economic side. I know there's lots of other things that happen at university, but you're really focusing on economic wellness, setting yourself up for a career that hopefully you'll love. That's only one of 8 categories in my world, how I look at wellness. And so if you're always focusing on that stuff and pushing yourself for that reason, you're going to ignore a whole bunch of other important aspects of your wellness. And so, for example, the article points out that if you push this, then all your other needs get set aside, and it almost becomes counterproductive. And you might get more anxiety. You might get burnt out. You lose your motivation.
I agree. I find that when students get wrapped up in the whole hustle culture narrative, they tend to be it's very tunnel vision. You disregard everything else. Like I know for me, during the academic year, I always put my academics first. So this could mean putting exercise on the back burner, not doing a wellness check-in. And these things are very detrimental in the long run. Like they might not affect you directly in the moment, but it's going to catch up to you. So it's very important to just try and manage all aspects of wellness when going through these sentiments.
The other thing you pointed out about like living in the moment, and the other thing this article said that I just really gravitate to is that you're in such a great time of your life right now. It's a very unique time in your life. University should be one of the most interesting times of your life. You've got your world in front of you. You're excited about how you can make changes and have a positive impact in the world and all that stuff. And you got to let yourself feel that. So I can tell you as an older person, I look back and I cherish my time at university. I don't know, maybe could I have done a better job savoring it at the time? But I think that's what this article is saying in part, that don't get too caught up with the hustle culture such that you can't savor what a great, interesting time of your life it is right now.
For sure. I completely agree. I feel like when I'm at a university, I'm inevitably going to have those what ifs and, oh, I should have done this. But ultimately, like I'm comfortable with myself that everything I do feels right in the moment. And I'm grateful that I'm able to have like that consciousness to be in the moment. So I would just advise all university students to just try their best and immerse themselves in the moment. I feel like getting wrapped up in hustle culture may be inevitable depending on who you hang around with, who's in your classes and so forth, but really try and dig deep and stay in the moment because you can reap so many benefits by doing so.
Yeah, and I think that's what caught my attention with this article. You did say a few of those kind of things in an earlier discussion, and so kind of reminded me of you and made me think, yeah, she's onto something. When it comes to kind of grounding yourself, coming back to the moment, the article also mentions taking time for the important daily tasks. And that's a message I try and send too, which is try and figure out the different activities that foster wellness in these different categories and try and find time for them for yourself. And if you're feeling off, try and figure out maybe what you're missing. And so one thing this says, for example, is, hey, remember the importance of daily tasks like getting some movement, or as we say, move that body, eating 3 meals a day, drinking enough water, getting groceries, hanging out with friends. And now what about you? Do you find time to kind of ground yourself in any of these activities that kind of separate out from university?
Yeah, I'm fortunate enough that my roommates are actually some of my closest friends. So whenever I'm feeling a bit off or I feel like I'm not really doing anything productive or like being in the moment, I'll go to my living room and we'll just have a quick chat. I also like to journal. I find that really introspecting and putting it on paper helps, even though it might seem mundane. I believe that the mundane tasks like daily can really have a big effect with my mental health, just ensuring that, you know, I'm doing something productive. And then also just taking some deep breaths, just realizing that these feelings, they're just in the moment, they're not temporary, and just grounding myself by taking deep breaths and realizing that things are going to get better. And this isn't I'm not going to feel like this forever type of thing. But I find those techniques really help ground me.
The thing I hear from lots of people, including myself, and this article mentions it too about social media, is a lot of people believe that everyone else has their act together. Everyone else has their lives together. And so we look at all this stuff on social media and we're like, oh no, like I don't. And I remember you saying that one of the things you try and do, I think you said on weekends, is there's a day where you don't look at social media, and you certainly try not to look at things where you'll be comparing yourself to others. So
for sure, yeah.
Do you find yourself thinking that everyone else has their act together?
Sometimes I do. I find that this especially happens when someone is doing something that I want to do, like as a goal. So whenever people are traveling, I'll be like, oh, I wish that was me. Oh, how did they get there? They're like a university student. But then I take a step back. I try and just like gather myself and realize that social media is so curated for like external appearances. So what I think is like the dream life, they might be experiencing something different behind the screen. So I just try and realize that all the moments, like all the posts on Instagram, LinkedIn, they're so curated, they're so thought out. And I just need to not compare myself to that, because I think that would just be detrimental, and it would be putting myself second if I did that.
I mean, I don't think we all want to start putting up the posts showing that we don't have our act together, like, tripping and falling or messing something up, or, the thing where we didn't do so great. But maybe we do need to post every once in a while. Just, I don't have my act together. I'm just like you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's the way it is, really. Sheila and I joked about that too, about being parents. I can joke about it now because my kids are older. But on one of our flip sides, we were talking about how kids seem to think their parents have their act together. Mm. And then, sometime in maybe their early 20s, they're like, you didn't have your act together. And we're like, ta-da.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just look behind the magic curtain. We're just trying to do things the best we can, just like the rest of the world. So,
of course,
hopefully it all works out. Okay.
Let's hope.
Anyway, when I read this, I just liked it a lot because I like the fact, because there is a place for hustle culture. And I think you and Sierra did a good job on that episode talking about the good and the bad. I do think there's a place where you want to push yourself. You want to see how far you can go. But I like the way this article is saying, don't let that take over everything. You're still in university. You'll be there for a little bit. Hopefully you'll be able to find that balance.
Yeah, I definitely think that hustle culture, there's some positives to it. Self-improvement is always something that I think people should strive for. Not being complacent in yourself, just trying to push yourself to be the best version of yourself, whether these changes are big or small. I think ultimately they add up, and you can reflect back and be like, wow, I'm proud of the person I've become. But yeah, like you said, John, I completely agree. Don't let yourself get wrapped into it, because it can be very detrimental in placing your mental health and physical health, economic health, all on the back burner.
It's like we always say here, just do a little check-in every once in a while. It's good to push yourself, but just find some time to check in once in a while to see how you're doing, and make sure you're not exclusively doing hustle culture. You find time for yourself, and especially be kind to yourself.
Guests are giving their time, expanding our minds.
Today's interview is in the category of physical wellness. We are speaking with a professional trainer, Andrea Lee. The takeaway from my wellness journey is that physical wellness is essential. Everything fell into place for me when I connected with my physical self. And my book is called Accidentally Well because I had an epiphany about wellness, a breakthrough when I wasn't expecting it. It didn't happen when I was studying or writing. It happened when I was running, when I was being physical. Getting in touch with my physicality was the key. And that's why I enjoy speaking with people who can help us with physical wellness. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
Andrea Lee has been certified with the Canadian Professional Trainers Network since 1996, and she's also a CPTN practical assessor. She has a background in post-rehabilitation and holistic nutrition. She began her career in Toronto, working with top industry professionals. She currently resides in Cambridge, and for the past 15 years, she's been running her own personal training studio. She's won the Cambridge Reader's Choice Award for the best personal trainer and overall service several years in a row. It doesn't matter if you're a youth athlete, adult athlete, or general fitness enthusiast. Andrea creates her personal training programs based on her clients' needs. And Andrea, when we chatted about possible topics, you mentioned something very interesting, the importance of the mind-muscle connection.
Yes, John.
Can we start by having you just describe what the different components are and then the connection?
Yes, absolutely. I think the most important part is the connection part. And the mind-muscle connection is deliberately focusing on the feeling of the muscle contracting. So you want to be very aware, you want to be very conscious of how the muscle is moving and how you are going about that exercise.
Now, I think we're kind of focusing in on, for example, weight training.
Yes.
Okay.
So we can use the example of the squat.
Perfect.
For creating that, so the listeners know what we're talking about with the connection, that mind-muscle connection. So if you take the squat, for example, and just a basic body-weighted squat, you don't want to just drop right into it. You want to create your stance. You want to feel your feet on the ground. You want to get tall in your body. Then you're going to slowly start to sit the hips back, allow the hips to hinge, feel the leg muscles slowly lowering you down, creating a little bit of tension through the core, having a pause at the bottom, then really grounding your feet, pressing through your heels, and starting to stand up, squeezing the quads, the front of the legs, squeezing the hamstrings, which is the back of the legs, and squeezing the glute muscles, which is the bum muscles, and then returning back to your starting position.
Wow. I thought I was actually focusing on the right muscle groups, but I always forget the quads.
Yes.
All the time.
Quads.
And another question, a quick question, since I have you here and I can steal some thoughts from you. What do you do with your arms in a squat? Sometimes I hold them in front of my chest. Like sometimes I point them out front. Like what do most people do with their arms?
So if you're doing a body weighted squat,
right.
I prefer the prayer position with the hands in front. Yes. If you're doing something with body weighted to get yourself warmed up. If clients are having trouble with their balance, I usually ask them to extend their arms forward because then it counteracts the hips going back and they can find a better center of gravity over their feet and it helps them with their balance.
I guess, and if you're keeping them in, is that just helping you work on your balance a little bit? Because
a little bit.
If you put your arms out, it's a bit easier, I take it. So if you keep them in, maybe it's just a little more challenging.
A little bit more challenging.
Okay.
Yes. It's also a good spot that you're going to eventually, if you're going to be holding a weight and doing squats like the goblet squat, for instance, when you're holding the weight close to your body, then you get used to having your arms where they should be as you're squatting.
Okay, so what if I overlook the connection? What's the concern if I'm not thinking about this connection?
I'd say if you overlook the connection, you're going to have very poor movement quality. Poor movement quality could be anything from joint dysfunction to imbalance of muscles. Something that you might see quite often in a gym setting is someone who may be moving too much weight, not having much awareness of the muscles that they do want to be training or are training, and end up using lots of other muscles to help them move that weight because the movement is too heavy. You lose that mind-muscle connection right away.
I definitely see that, and that's my experience too, which is if I go to... So let me back up and say what I just did recently that was great. So I hadn't done weights in a long time, and frankly, I was dreading it. I was like, oh no, it's going to be so hard. I'm going to be so sore. One of the ways I finally convinced myself to do it is I thought, you know what, I'm going to start with really light weights. Just going to start with light weights. And it was working great. Everything was going great. And I wasn't too sore. But then at one point, I crept the weights up a little too fast. And I was doing some of the exercises. And I noticed that my form was just falling apart. But I'm like, I'm tough. I can do this, right? So I was like forcing these heavy weights up. And I'm like, no, I have to go back to the right weights. And when I did, my form came back. It felt so much better.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Form key number one is not to lose form. So you want to challenge yourself, but be able to keep your form. I always tell my clients, you don't want to just get through the exercise. You want to get through the exercise with good form, feeling the muscles, being able to breathe, keeping the movement quality high.
Right. And like someone like me, I don't really want to get big. In fact, I'd rather get kind of smaller because it's the lighter you are when you run, kind of the better. But I definitely want to be strong.
But you want to be strong.
But presumably, once I get to a certain weight, can I just stop increasing it and just stick with a weight that's making me feel good?
Yes. If you're for running, you're probably going to end up staying in that rep range of 12 to 15 repetitions. You will eventually hit your natural ceiling. Then when that happens, you can challenge yourself still by changing the tempo a little bit. That also helps you to be able to stick with a weight that was challenging for your 12 to 15 rep range. But instead of going heavier, you can make the tempo slower. You'll still use that same amount of weight. You'll keep the movement quality. You'll challenge your muscles. Make something a little bit new.
Because I'm getting older and like I don't see this as like I want to get big and
no, you want to stay strong.
I just want to stay strong, and when I'm older, be able to be as mobile as possible.
Absolutely.
Be running, be athletic, possibly.
Absolutely.
Even older.
You can definitely be athletic.
And another thing you mentioned when we were just kind of setting this up is you said when you do go back and do the bit lighter weights and you're doing it right and you're doing it at the right tempo, you start to feel things a little deeper in your muscles. And I'm trying to figure out what that means. How would you describe that?
Oh, so by deeper in the muscles, I meant being able to feel the actual tightening of the muscles. I always ask my clients, can you actually feel the muscle tightening yet?
Right.
Can you feel the muscle lengthening? Can you feel the muscle shortening? If they can get one of those three, or if they can get all three of those, they usually say they can feel the muscle deeper. They can feel a deeper connection. They can feel a deeper contraction of the muscle. And instead of just going through the motion,
right?
Because that's what happens when you're first learning to lift weights. You are at first learning the form,
right,
which is going through the motion. Then you start to layer on that mind-muscle connection.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Gives you something to look forward to.
It does. It does. You can see the movement quality change in the client too,
right,
when they start to feel it deeper, when they can feel the tightening. They see it shortening and lengthening, and they can feel that. It really improves their mind-muscle connection. It improves how they feel about the exercise, and they're no longer just moving the weight through a range of motion.
Let's take an example of someone who has never done weights before, or maybe they've been doing it on their own and they don't feel like they're doing it right. How can a person know what to think about, like the right movement of the muscles for this mind-muscle connection? How can they find that out? Presumably getting a trainer is a great way to do it, but what are some of the other ways?
Right. Yes, I agree. A trainer is a fantastic way. Just because you're drawing on their knowledge, you can use a trainer for 5 sessions. You can use a trainer for 10 sessions or for years to help build up your knowledge. If you don't have access to a trainer, then books and videos are a great way to get started. You want to then apply the principle of progressive overload. And what I mean by progressive overload is increasing the intensity slowly over time.
So you start off, let's say you see a video on how to do a curl or something like that.
Yes.
You start with a light weight, maybe with a bit of a slower tempo, so you can kind of get the feeling of what muscles should be moving and are moving.
Yes, you want to challenge yourself, but comfortably.
And then
comfortable challenge is what I usually say to my clients.
So let's say you have that comfort zone and you're feeling the muscles. How do you then progress? What are the ways you can progress?
If you're going to add weight, you want to add about 5 pounds of weight. If your goal is 12 to 15 repetitions, can you hit the top of that rep range, which is 15 repetitions, with good form, comfortably, but challenged with that new weight? If you can, then the next workout, you would increase it again.
Another thing too is tempo.
Yes.
What's the difference in tempo? Like, is it good to do slow and fast?
On average, it's good to stick with between 1 second, and you can progress up to 4 or 5 seconds with regard. So how tempo works is it's usually described within 4 numbers.
Okay.
So the first number is your lowering phase, or that eccentric contraction. The second number in the tempo would be whether or not you're pausing at the bottom. The third number is your lifting, or that concentric contraction. And then the fourth number applies to whether or not you're holding it or pausing at the top. Say it said, your tempo said 2-0-2-0. You would lower for 2 seconds, no pause. Immediately you're pushing back up, but taking 2 seconds, and then no pause at the top, going right back down into the rep again.
And I've mixed mine up a bit. I do know that I do on one of my squats with dumbbells. It's called a tempo squat, where I take 3 seconds to get down, and then I hold for 3 seconds, and then I go up a little faster.
For overall strength building or muscle building, you want to stay somewhere between that 2 and 4 for lifting and lowering.
Okay.
Yes.
And so do I take it then that speeding up these decreases the kind of the building of the muscle or the strengthening if you do them too fast?
It can just create poor movement quality,
Right.
unless you are doing something dynamic.
Right.
So if you wanted to do box jumps,
Right.
if you wanted to slam a ball against the
Right.
floor or do your wall ball throws or something against the wall, then your tempo is going to be faster.
So we're coming close to the end of the interview, and I have a question I ask every guest. But before we do, I kept interrupting you, so I want to give you a chance. Was there something else you wanted to talk about in terms of this mind-muscle connection before I turn to that question?
Oh, thanks, John. I think just overall summarizing that mind-muscle connection, you just really want to make it deliberate, active, be conscious of what you're doing and how you're moving. And you will see results because you're being very active in how you're moving and you're not just passively going through the range of motion.
I'd have to say that of all the tips I've gotten from weightlifting, someone having given me that tip kind of in a more rudimentary form, like you've explained it way better than I did understand it, but even the basic, like just focus on the muscles you're trying to work, that was probably the best addition in making things the most enjoyable for me. So it's a great tip.
That's fantastic.
Okay, so we're at the end, and we ask every guest the same question in a context where we all have areas of wellness that are important to us, but no one has enough time to keep all of them going at any given time. So we do this mini wellness check-in. Are you currently neglecting an area of wellness in your life? And if so, can you think of even one thing you can do to foster wellness in that area?
Great question. I think I would like to focus more on environmental wellness. I've slowly have started to become more aware of products I have in my house, how much plastic I might be buying. One thing I've done already is laundry strips instead of the big jugs of laundry detergent. And then just trying to actively do a bit more research on what I can do better for environmental wellness.
That's fantastic. I hope you are able to help the environment because it's such a critical area for all of us.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks very much for your time, and I'm going to have you back pretty soon, and we're going to talk about another great topic.
Thanks, John.
I'm Cameron, and welcome to another installment of The Adventures of the Starving Artist. Being an independent musician means I have to wear lots of different hats. And I've talked a little bit about this before, but this week I have to unfortunately wear one of my least favorite hats. It doesn't look very good on me. It is the administrative and paperwork hat. Yes, this week I'm spending lots of time reading up on and doing my research on things like setting up an HST number, what the best structure for that would be, whether it's sole proprietorship or some other sort of company structure, plus juggling how I might factor that into things with my new position with the teaching company. So lots of stuff to juggle, trying to figure out the best thing and taking steps to move forward on that. It's tons of reading, and that's fine. It's just taken up a lot of time because this is not my strong suit. I'm very new to that sort of thing. So I'm finding it very draining and just kind of like sucks the energy out of me. But on the plus side, getting me through, one of my favorite bands put out a new song, and I will preface this by saying that this particular band and style of music is definitely not for everybody. The band is from Sweden, so I'm probably going to butcher some pronunciation here, but bear with me. They're called Vildhjarta, and the song is called Den Spanska Känslan, which, according to Google Translate, means the Spanish feeling. I won't go into the huge breakdown of what the lyrics translation is, but it's metal. So it's pretty heavy stuff. It's a dark sound, but from a musical standpoint, I'm really loving it. I've actually had it on a bit of a loop lately, and there's lots for me to pull apart and analyze, both with like the academic approach to music and the artistic approach. There's tons going on in this song. Lots of different themes and motifs. A really cool use of bending to approach notes that really lends itself to the tension and release, or the give and take, that makes this kind of music so effective. If you're feeling brave, I encourage you to check it out. Like I said, it's been getting me through all this paperwork. Wish me luck as I do some more research and a whole bunch more reading. I hope you have a more thrilling week than I'm having, but these things are important and we got to do them. So that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you have a fabulous week. I'm Cameron. This is The Starving Artist. Until next time.
We love our listeners and thanks for joining us. Please help spread the word about Let's Be Well Together podcast. Follow us and rate us on Spotify, Apple, Google, or your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Instagram at lets.be.well.together and let your friends know about us.
Move that body like we're meant to do.
Had a great chat with Andrea Lee earlier about the mind-muscle connection when you're lifting weights. Physical wellness is such a key theme to us. So with that in mind, it's really frustrating to see Sheila injured. She's been injured for over a month now because of a knee injury.
Well, and it's been up and down.
Exactly.
So I feel like it kind of gets better and then something happens and it gets worse. But the problem is I feel like it's keep getting worse and worse and worse.
But in any event, you're not the kind of person who should be still or should be immobilized. And it's really hard to watch. I guess what's frustrating right now is that you were getting better. Like you would rest it and you get better, you'd rest it. And it was all going kind of on an uphill in terms of the recovery. And then boom, all of a sudden this weekend, it's like, it's gone backwards even when you rest it. So maybe we can just talk a little bit about when you're injured because you want to get back to exercising again. And we did come across a couple tips on some social media stuff. Why don't you read the one you found and I'll read the one that I found?
Okay, so the one I found was start with low impact exercises like cycling, walking, swimming, or yoga, and gradually increase the intensity as the injury starts to heal. And I have been doing that, but oddly enough, the more the exercise that I do, the next day it's worse.
Right. Even if you're doing kind of low impact.
Yeah. Like I was doing yoga and I'm like, oh, it won't be too bad. But the stretching really hurt. And then it was, I swear I pulled it a little bit and it was worse. Cycling isn't too bad. Cycling is pretty good, but walking puts a lot of wear and tear. So it's the gravity pushing on if I can do things that are anti-gravity, like swimming. Cycling, I feel like works, but because I'm putting my weight on my butt mainly. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, the one that I'm reading off, it talks about ways to maintain your fitness when injured. Pool running, anti-gravity treadmill. I'm not sure what that is. It sounds pretty fantastic.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Stair walking, walk and run. Avoid high-intensity interval training. Monitor the pain and stop injuries before they happen. Oh, that's all great.
Yeah, it's not great. It's great. It's a drag to read.
When it says things to do when you're injured, I think it's a little too late for that. Well, let's just go a little bit over what you're experiencing, because it is an interesting time, right? Like that's one of the things we do here is we share experiences, and you're someone who loves to be physical, always working out. So part of it is just sharing what it feels like when you can't. You've tried the kind of rest. Is there anything else you might try?
Right. I think it's time to go see professionals at this point. Like I've really been trying to heal myself. I've been icing. I've been elevating. I've been resting. So I've been doing a lot of the things that you're supposed to do.
I think too, in fairness, we're all optimistic, aren't we? Especially us athletes, and runners are the worst, because the doctor's like, okay, just don't run on this for the next 4 weeks. And the guy comes back and the doctor's like, how's it going? Good. I've been running a lot less. So we're all ridiculously optimistic people who like to exercise it. Well, I'm sure it's nothing. Like, I'm sure if I just rest it and I do all the things I'm supposed to do and do lighter activity, but then there comes a time where I think you're right, where you're like, I tried that stuff. It's been a month. It's getting worse. I need to get someone qualified to look at it and tell me, maybe you've got a torn something.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I've been thinking now in the last little while, that it's just not getting better and I can't live my life the way I want to live my life. But I did want to say here that I really feel bad for anyone who does have chronic injury, or just generally anyone who does get injured. It's really hard, dealing with the pain. You're in constant pain all the time, dealing with the lack of mobility. So it's not just hard to exercise, it's hard to live your life. So I feel your pain, people, if you have chronic pain or if you have an injury, but I do want to stay mobile as much as I can. So yesterday I was literally resting and John wasn't here all day. So, or most of the morning anyway. So what I did was I set a timer. So every hour I was icing it, but I also did some exercise. So I did some ab work for 5 minutes. And then the next hour I did some arm work, like things that I can do. So trying to move in, ways that I can't move my knee because it's a knee injury. So that's what I've been doing.
Okay. Well, we are kind of at the end of our time. In fact, we're a bit over time, but I don't want to stop yet because we often talk about the connection between physical wellness and all the other areas of wellness, including mental. So just before we go, you say you feel bad for people who have chronic injuries. Hopefully people can find some way to move their bodies. Maybe it has to be kind of in a more limited way, but like what's happening with your mind, right? Your mental state, your feeling of happiness and all that stuff. How's it being affected by not being able to exercise?
Well, I kind of go in up and down stages. Sometimes I'm really grateful for what I do have and what I can do and what I was able to do. And I'm hoping that it will get better. And I'm trying to be positive and trying to not let it absorb me, just kind of feel it and release it. And then other times I want to cut my leg off.
Right. Don't do that.
And I just want it to go away. And I'm just very frustrated. So,
well, it's part of Move That Body is when you can't move that body. And it's something we need to confront and really think about when we're injured. How do we get ourselves back to the point where we can be moving our bodies the way we want to?
There's a thought. Popped up while running.
A lesson that's paid off for me so many times over and over is that it's not all or nothing. So many times we set goals, whether they're fitness goals, weight loss goals, any goals really, and we realize we're not going to achieve them. So what do? We do nothing. I've learned that that's not the approach. The approach for me is to try and get something accomplished. It's incredible how many times I implemented that and then had this great result. And recently it happened again for something that's had a really nice change in my lifestyle. I was getting ready for a run, so I had to get miles on my legs. That's the one thing about doing long runs like a half marathon or a marathon. If you can get the miles on your legs, it makes the day a lot easier. If you don't, it's a struggle. Also, at the time I was running before work, I ended up hurting my hip. I'm not sure how. I think I did some weightlifting improperly. The weird thing was that it hurt if I ran, but not if I walked. So I realized I could still keep getting some miles on my legs by walking before work. And the kind of right mileage in terms of the time was about 5 kilometers. A couple times I went out and walked those 5K, and then I realized, goofball, that's how far it is to work. Why walk 5 kilometers and take a shower, then find your way to work when you could just walk to work and get both things done at the same time? I started walking to work. I'm still walking to work, even though my hip's better. I love it. I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm watching the city wake up. It's really been incredible. And another example of I can't do exactly what I want, but I can do something. I do that something, and it makes a change for the better. It's me. Am I?
Yeah. Just let me say, flip side of the coin.
I had this crazy idea. For some reason, I was thinking of when we went to Ireland. And you do a cheers. So when you drink,
You say
I think they say sláinte.
Sláinte, yeah.
Which I think means good health. Which I wouldn't have thought that that's what they'd say in Ireland, but that's what they say.
Yeah, sláinte.
And I was thinking, hey, we should come up with a cheer. And I like this whole concept of, and I'm trying to figure it out, life in every breath. How to make the most of every breath. And we love France. We loved our trip to Paris. We loved living in Montreal. We love Quebec.
Love Quebec.
And so I thought, I wonder, I don't even know if this would work. I should ask someone who's French, but I thought, what if we make our cheer every breath? You know, like life in every breath in French.
Every breath. Yes.
Which I think is chaque souffle.
Oh, chaque souffle. Did I
You
say
said
it right?
it perfect.
Oh my God.
Because every time we tried it.
Every time I tried, I'm like, chaque souffle. Okay. Chaque souffle.
No. Chaque souffle.
Oh, chaque souffle. No, I said soup.
So I think my proposal is the Let's Be Well Together cheers, our cheers, is going to be chaque souffle.
Chaque.
So we'll clink our glass.
I guess got to figure out chaque souffle. And
Well, it's SOUFLE, souffle.
Souffle.
Perfect.
Chaque souffle.
Perfect.
Yeah, well, I've got it for 5 seconds. Just wait. Let's keep talking. And then at the end, I'll try and say it and see if it's right.
Oh, that's what we should have had a glass of wine or something here so we could actually do it. I have a half drank coffee. You've got a water bottle.
You can
so
do
we can
with
try that at the end.
We can try that at the end.
What do you think? Can we make that our cheers?
Yeah, okay. But is this our personal cheers that we're doing here? Or is this like the cheers for the actual Let's Be Well Together cheer? We all going to be, everyone's like chaque souffle.
Well, I'm just saying it for me and you. It'll be our personal one.
Yeah.
But what the heck? If anyone listening wants to use it for themselves too,
yeah,
let's start a
life
trend.
in every breath. And let's see if it actually is translatable too, if that makes sense. Anyone who's French.
I don't want to do the whole expression, but I thought a couple words makes you think of that expression.
So what are the words? Chaque
Each
souffle.
breath.
Each breath.
Yeah, so I'm not saying the life in every
Like
breath,
chaque.
just each breath.
Right, chaque souffle.
But that's a great thing to think about just before you have a sip of wine, or I can imagine it at the bar. And another thing I noticed too, by the way, I was watching a TV show. You and I like watching the British TV shows.
We do.
People sat down in the bar and they clinked their glass, tapped it on the table, and then they drank.
Yeah, and they did that all the time. And you were like, why are they doing that?
So I looked it up online. Yeah. And apparently, I think this is a great tip too. Apparently, tapping your glass on the bar or on your table is a sign of respect and thanks to the establishment and the people who work there.
Yeah, so you clink on the table, you clink each other, or you clink each other, then the table,
clink
then
each other, table, drink.
then drink. Yeah.
And that's the way of saying thank you, bartender. Thank you, waitress.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
establishment.
And I think that's a really cool idea.
That is a cool idea.
We should try and build that into our cheers.
We can.
Now, if we do that on this table, people will hear like a clunk.
Right.
But should we try it?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay,
I got my coffee.
Here we go.
Chaque souffle.
Chaque souffle.
Wow, you actually drank.
Yeah, I actually drank.
Good one. Please remember that we're not providing advice. We hope to inspire you to work towards balance, and we urge you to consult with qualified people if you need advice. The people on the show are speaking in their personal capacities. Their views expressed are their own, and don't represent the views or opinions of their outside contacts, their employers, or anyone else. We try to get things right, but we can't guarantee everything we say is correct, or that the things we talk about will work for you. Let's be well together, and let's be sure to do that in a safe way. That's a wrap on the episode, and it's sign off, and I'm here with Sheila and Elise.
Hi.
Hello.
I was kind of just recovering this week. I did my long run last Sunday. I was a bit stiff, a little sore, and I decided to take a break from running. We're doing an early sign off. It's Saturday morning. We usually do it Sunday or Monday night. And that means I got to do a 10K run either today or tomorrow. I think I'm going to try it today. So
Beautiful weather.
We will see what happens when I get out there. I've really been enjoying walking to work. I'm walking to work almost all the time right now. I don't know how long that'll go because of the winter season. I finished listening to some books, really enjoying that. I just listened to one of my favorite books, Shadow of the Wind. That was amazing. So kind of a chill week. And the only downside is, as I kind of mentioned already, it's really hard to watch Sheila being injured. She is one of the most mobile people I know, and she's not in a good mood either when she's injured. Luckily, I haven't taken the brunt of that, but I still see her upset. So how are you doing, Sheila?
Well, I am surviving. I just am very frustrated. And I think I'm now passing the self-healing process and need to go see professionals. I was really hoping that my knee would get better, but it seems to be going up 2 levels and then coming down 4, going up 2 and getting worse and worse. So I need to see a doctor, get some work done, and do some physio. That's what's going on with me. I did work all week though, so that was good. But now my resting is very frustrating. And that's all I can say about me. What about you, Elise?
Oh, that's so hard.
Yeah.
I've had a really busy work week. We had a lot of events after my work day. So we had our Meet the Teacher night. We had a big PD day event with everyone in my school board that I was helping to organize. So now I feel like I can breathe.
Good.
I feel like I have checked all of those events off my list, and I'm really excited about that. So looking forward to this week. I'm hoping to get back into playing the piano.
Good one.
Yeah, I've been doing my pottery, which is a great artistic expression. I have one more class where I'm going to paint. I love that. That's really exciting. So I've been looking at a lot of inspiration for painting my pottery. And then I'm hoping to start playing the piano again. So that's about it for me. I think we're supposed to have a beautiful week in terms of weather. So excited
great.
for fall.
I knew we were supposed to have a beautiful weekend. So if the week continues, that would be lovely. Because I did get some swimming in, and for an injured knee, swimming is one thing that's really good. So I'm hoping if I can turn the heater on in the pool, I can do a little more swimming before we have to close it. So here's fingers crossed. Everyone have a great week, and we will talk to you soon. That is it for today's show. Please try and make wellness a priority.
You deserve it.
If you feel the need to talk to someone or ask for help, please do that.
Accept yourself for the person you are.
So long.
Adieu.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Goodbye.